From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Zahra Syed. Our top story tonight. South Africa filed a case against Israel today for alleged violations of the Genocide Convention at the International Court of Justice, or the ICJ. South Africa in this case accuses Israel of genocidal intent to destroy Palestinian people. It also says that Israel is violating the Genocide Convention. South Africa has requested that the ICJ indicate provisional measures in order to protect against further severe and irreparable harm to the rights of Palestinian people. Israel dismissed South Africa's initiation of a genocide case at the International Court of Justice. Israel's foreign ministry accused South Africa of collaboration with the terrorist group. South Africa is amongst the 5 countries that earlier asked the International Criminal Court to investigate crimes against Palestinians. In the past 24 hours, Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 55 Palestinians, with many more left wounded. Central Gaza's Nuseirat and Maghazi refugee camps were particularly hard hit, with 35 casualties. In Gaza's southern city of Rafah, a residential building near the Kuwait Specialty Hospital was struck. This resulted in the deaths of 20 Palestinians, including women and children. The United Nations Agency for Refugees reports that since October 7th, 308 people taking shelter in its facilities have been killed, and 1,095 others injured. An Israeli soldier was killed during recent fighting in northern Gaza, bringing the total Israeli military casualties to 168 since the start of Israel's ground offensive in late October. Israel also announced an expansion of its operations in the southern Khan Yunis area. Additionally, Israeli soldiers reportedly opened fire on an aid convoy returning from northern Gaza along an approved route. The Palestine Red Crescent Society, or the PRCS, shared the harrowing testimony of a paramedic, Mohammed Saleh. He described the mistreatment he and his colleagues endured during an Israeli forces raid at the PRCS ambulance center. Since October 7th, Israeli attacks have led to the deaths of 21,507 Palestinians and another 55,915 injured. The death toll from Hamas's attacks on Israel stands at 1,139. Israeli forces used skunk water and tear gas canisters to deter Palestinians from reaching Al-Aqsa Mosque to offer Friday prayers today. According to the Palestinian Wafa news agency, worshippers were left grasping for breath as they were denied entry into Islam's third holiest site. They were instead forced to pray in the Wadi al-Joz near the Old City. Israeli soldiers also reportedly shot worshippers with rubber-coated metal bullets. Only 12,000 people managed to access Al-Aqsa Mosque, a stark contrast to the usual 70,000 on a typical Friday. This marks the 12th consecutive Friday of heightened Israeli military measures that have restricted access to Al-Aqsa Mosque and affected residents of Jerusalem's Old City. Skunk water is a foul-smelling liquid mixture, which has been compared to the stench of sewage and rotting corpses. It causes severe nausea, obstructs normal breathing, and leads to violent gagging and vomiting. In related news, a group of extremist Israeli settlers gathered and held a ritual at the Qattanin gate, one of the entrances of the Al-Aqsa compound in occupied East Jerusalem, on Thursday. An Anadolu news agency video showed a section of the group performing a Talmudic ritual. Another section was carrying a Torah scroll in the Qattanin market. The sound of the shofar, which is blown during the ritual, was also heard from inside Al-Aqsa Mosque. Extremist Jewish settlers who call the area the Temple Mount encourage Israelis to raid Al-Aqsa Mosque to perform religious rituals, accompanied by calls to build a Jewish temple there. Violent and extremist Israeli settlers have been raiding Al-Aqsa Mosque with Israeli police since 2003. The Israeli military has issued a censorship order to the media, banning coverage of 8 issues related to the war on Palestine in Gaza. According to The Intercept, the order, entitled Operation Swords of Iron, bans reporting on details of weapons used by Israel, discussions of security cabinet meetings, and reports on Israeli prisoners held by Hamas. The order also implies to reporting on military operations, intelligence information, cyber attacks, and visits to the battlefield by high-ranking military officials. Journalists in Israel often practice self-censorship to circumvent these restrictions. Foreign journalists must obtain a permit from the government, which includes compliance with censorship guidelines, raising ethical concerns for some media organizations. Although censorship by the Israeli military is not new, the publication of this memo in English is unusual and shows that it is also intended to reach Western media. The order has been signed off by the chief censor of the Israeli Defense Forces, Brigadier General Kobi Mendelblit. The Israeli military censor is a unit within the Directorate of Military Intelligence. Since the beginning of the Israeli war against Palestine, the Israeli government has either completely or partially censored more than 6,500 new articles. Thousands of protesters gathered in New York City to express solidarity with Palestine. Protesters staged a silent demonstration in remembrance of the children of Gaza killed in the ongoing conflict as they carried shrouded baby models. These were placed on the ground in Times Square to symbolize the tragic effect of Israel's war on the children of Gaza. Israeli soldiers are facing allegations of assaulting wounded Palestinian victims of a recent drone strike in the West Bank. The incident occurred following an Israeli Defense Forces drone strike that killed 6 people in the Nur Shams refugee camp near Tulkarem, which is a part of the occupied West Bank. According to the head of the Tulkarem Medical Syndicate, Dr. Redwan Blaibla, Israeli troops forcibly entered ambulances transporting injured Palestinians from the airstrike and attacked them. One victim was reportedly stabbed in the neck, while 2 others were subjected to physical assault. The soldiers allegedly declared their intention to prevent the victims from reaching the hospital. The incident has been condemned as a flagrant violation of humanitarian law by Dr. Blaibla, who called on the international community to hold Israel accountable. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society reports that ambulances were blocked for over an hour and a half, leading to additional casualties. The drone strike occurred after Israeli forces entered the camp, and tensions escalated with Palestinian resistance fighters. The Gaza death toll surpasses 21,300. Details come after the break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. The Palestinian death toll from Israeli attacks since October 7th is now at 21,320. In a statement, Palestine Health Ministry spokesman Ashraf Al-Qudra said that 55,603 other people had been injured in the Israeli onslaught. He also noted that at least 210 people were killed and 360 others were injured in the last 24 hours. Al-Qudra stressed that 312 medics were killed and 104 ambulances destroyed in Israeli attacks, while 23 hospitals and 142 healthcare centers were forced out of service. An Israeli military court has sentenced 18-year-old Tal Mitnick to 30 days in prison for his refusal to participate in army service. Mitnick said he believes that violence and war would not lead to security. He also accused the Israeli government of using them to silence criticism and gain support. Mitnick highlighted the tragic consequences of military actions, emphasizing that negotiations and agreements had successfully resolved hostage situations. He also criticized the notion that there were no innocent civilians in Gaza, citing incidents where even Israeli prisoners waving white flags were killed. This marks the first instance of an Israeli being imprisoned for opposing the Gaza war since its outbreak on October 7th. Previously, over 200 Israeli high schoolers announced their rejection of military service due to Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories. French magazine Charlie Hebdo has been fined for defamation after targeting the Muslim school Valeurs et Réussite in Valence, France. The publication had alleged ties between the school and the Muslim Brotherhood in a July 2022 article. Mourad Jabri, president of the school's Muslim Association, praised the verdict as a victory for justice in France. The ruling cleared the association's reputation, though it also resulted in the cancellation of an estate purchase. In a recorded conversation, Valence Mayor Nicolas Daragon admitted to succumbing to pressure, leading to land sales cancellation. The magazine's editor-in-chief and a journalist were fined $3,300 each. Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley has backtracked on her previous comments regarding the causes of the U.S. Civil War after facing criticism. The former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and ex-governor of South Carolina initially claimed that the conflict was primarily about the government's role and individual freedoms. However, she later admitted that the Civil War was about slavery. Her initial response had drawn widespread condemnation, including from President Joe Biden. Despite the controversy, Haley remains a strong contender in recent polls. She is currently in second place behind former President Donald Trump, with just over 3 weeks left until the Republican primary. Special Counsel Jack Smith has submitted a formal request asking District Judge Tanya Chutkan to impose limitations in the upcoming federal election interference trial. Smith's request seeks to prevent Trump from making baseless claims of selective prosecution and shifting blame for the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol onto law enforcement. The trial, which is scheduled for March, faces potential delays. This is due to the ongoing disputes over Trump's alleged immunity from charges related to his involvement in overturning the 2020 election results and the Capitol insurrection. The Supreme Court rejected Smith's request to expedite the case, leaving it to the appeals court for now. Smith's motion aims to establish ground rules if the trial proceeds. Trump remains a prominent GOP candidate for the 2024 election, despite facing multiple criminal cases. Mexican President Andres Manuel López Obrador has announced a significant breakthrough in addressing border migration between the U.S. and Mexico. This was during a meeting with the United States delegation led by Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The discussions held in Mexico City aimed to combat criminal networks involved in migrant smuggling and to promote legal pathways for migration. The meeting was prompted by the surge in migrant encounters, with up to 12,000 daily reported at the border. A working group will be established for regular migration discussions, with the next meeting scheduled for January in Washington. Mexico's efforts have led to record migrant captures, with 123% increase in 2023 compared to 2021, and a staggering 402% rise from 2020. 2023 is set to be remembered as one of the most challenging for children worldwide, according to the United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF. The agency says ongoing conflicts have deprived tens of thousands of children of their future, and insufficient humanitarian funding has exacerbated the crisis, particularly in conflict zones. In Gaza, over 40% of the death toll consists of children, resulting from prolonged hostilities. Sudan is facing a severe displacement crisis, while the Democratic Republic of Congo is witnessing continued violence against children. UNICEF has called for $10.3 billion in emergency funding to assist over 110 million children in 155 countries, focusing on major crises in various regions. The appeal was focused on major crises, including in Sahel, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Horn of Africa, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Burma. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Today marks the last broadcast for this year. On behalf of Muslim Network TV, we wish you a very peaceful and prosperous year ahead. We remember the plight of our Palestinian brothers and sisters and pray for their safety. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.